Hello Steelers, and welcome to this game of Chain of Command. It's one I've been wanting to play for quite a while now. Some of you may remember relatively well, last year I painted some British paratroopers with their Recce units, and I did them specifically for this particular article that was in Wargaming Soldiers and Strategies magazine number 116. It's the Arnhem Ambush, written by Nick Skinner. And it basically depicts the British Recce paratroopers heading from their landing zones during the attack on Arnhem, heading out to Arnhem itself because they'd landed a little bit too far away. They were caught up by some SS soldiers at a place called, let me just find it, at a place called Wolfheze near the railway line. And they basically didn't get through to Arnhem immediately, but were able to get through the next day rather than the day of the attacks. One of their lead units, their lead jeeps, which was actually driven by, let me find his name, I think it was Lieutenant Peter Bucknell, in a jeep. He was out front, they got attacked and I think they were all killed. And the second jeep that came in after it, they took casualties as well. So it's a pretty tough one actually for the Allies. They've got to get at least one jeep off this end of the table where I am, where the Germans are. The Germans have literally just got to stop them. It's pretty simple. It's quite a wide open table. There's a lot of trees on the edges, but the centre is pretty open as well. And as I say, this is the Arnhem end where I'm sat here on the table, and the British are coming from their landing zones on the other side of the table as well. It should be quite interesting to see what happens. I've not really used smallish vehicles before in such a game, and there's quite a lot of British, but the Germans also have quite a lot of firepower as well. So what I'll do, is I always do in these videos, is I will show you the units that are actually involved in this. Then we'll also do the patrol phase, and then we'll just start the game and see where we go, see if the British can actually get through to Arnhem this time. So here we have our two forces. We've got the British paras here, and they're armoured, their Recce units, against the Germans over here as well. So I'll just go quickly through the Germans. So we have the senior leader at the back. This is Hauptscharführer Weigand, who was leading at the time of the ambush. And he also has three sections, 1, 2 and 3 here. Each of these are made up of junior leader with a 3-man LMG team and a 6-man rifle team. They don't actually have any Panzerfausts as well, or even a Panzerschreck as part of their team, so it's quite lightly armoured from an armour point of view. But what they do have is a support weapon in the form of an MMG with 5 crew as well. So they've got quite a lot of firepower if they can get this straight onto the table as quickly as they can. Just to say as well, the Germans do actually have the initiative in this particular game, so they will be moving first. Over on the British side, we have each of these jeeps, well, at least 6 of them, have got 4 men in with a junior leader as well as sergeant. We've also got our lead jeep as well, which has been driven by Lieutenant Peter Bucknell. He's been followed straight after by Sergeant McGregor. Each of those have got 4 men in those teams. So each of the jeeps is a half section basically. So together that would be 10 men in total, 2 jeeps. We've also got the Troop HQ as well, which is down here. So we've got Captain Hay, and he's got a 4-man Bren gun team with his jeep, and then we've also got over here Sergeant Winder with a this one's got a 2-man mortar team. So I could have chosen the Piat team or the mortar team. I've gone with the mortar team, so I think it's going to be a little bit more effective against the German infantry here. So just to go through quickly, so I've already mentioned we've got Lieutenant Peter Bucknell and Sergeant McGregor in their jeeps. They will start the game on the table. I'll show you how that happens later. We've also got Lieutenant Boyles with Sergeant Christie as well, each in a jeep with 4 men. Then we've got Lieutenant Folks and Sergeant Stacey as well in 2 other jeeps with 4 men. So not a huge amount of firepower from the British. One other thing to mention as well is these are not the double Bren guns as sometimes is depicted. These are actually using the Vickers K machine guns, and it's only a single Vickers K machine gun as well. So we got, let me just read it out to you here, just to talk about the actual Jeeps themselves, because it says a section of Recce Jeeps consists of 2 Jeeps. The section is commanded by a superior junior leader, who is the first Jeep of the pair. Second Jeep is commanded by a standard junior leader, activating on the roll of a 3 of the command dice. If both half sections are mounted in Jeeps, the superior junior leader can extend his command radius to 9 inch, so that he can activate both Jeeps, while all crews are mounted within that distance. The Jeep commander can use one of his command points to fire the bonnet-mounted Vickers K, and the gun fires with 8 dice at other range bands of the factors as the Bren gun. It's not possible to snipe with a Vickers K gun though. It's been designed for an altogether more spray and pray approach. So this is how they work, slightly different to what you would normally get because they are Recce. So that's the forces involved. Let's see if they can actually push through onto Arnhem in this game, and we'll play through the patrol phase. The Germans began with 3 patrol markers and the British began with 4. The Germans were going to try and close down the British before they could get any further across the table. This would just help them with their defence, and they could just line that back line with their jumping off points. This was the idea, so they were very aggressively patrolling forward while the British were trying to move out onto the flanks there, as you can see. But the Germans were soon quickly closing down those British patrol markers, unfortunately for them. So that's the patrol phase finished, and what's happened is the Germans have basically used only 3 patrol phases, just patrol markers, just to lock down the British as quick as they can to stop them pushing forward. So they've only pushed forward really about this far before they've been stopped. Now, because again this is slightly different to a normal patrol phase, what we do is we measure the furthest forward British marker, which is this one here, from the table edge, and that is 14 inches, and then we double that and then position Lieutenant Bucknell's Jeep, because he sped off therefore forward down the road, so he is actually there. And then we also have his Sergeant McGregor entering just on the table edge itself at the back there, so he was probably just off camera. So we basically got Bucknell way ahead down here in the Germans, and then now what I'm going to do is now I'm going to set up the jumping off points for each of the sides. So this guy's already in a very dodgy position and probably will get taken out pretty quickly. So we've set up the jumping off points, so we've got a British one here right on the edge, and there's the Sergeant with his Jeep. Another one in this clump of trees here, just where the road jumps moves around, and also another one here on the embankment of the railway as well. The Germans on the other hand have set one up here very close to the lieutenant in his vehicle. They've also got another one over here as well on the edge of these trees, and then their third one here. So they're in a perfect position really for an ambush on that road as the rest of the British vehicles come down. So it is going to be a pretty difficult one for the British to try to get through, but they only need to get one vehicle through at the end of the day. So can they do it? Let's find out. Okay, I've rolled for force morale. The British, despite being elite, have ended up with 9. However, they're still slightly better than the Germans, who ended up with 8. I think they both rolled a 1 on their force morale rolls. So they're not ended up with great things. The Germans are getting 5 command dice. The British, because they're elite paras, they're getting 6 command dice. We said that the Germans have got the initiative because they've sprung an ambush. So let's see what they end up with. Okay, we've got a 5 and a 5, so that is 2 chain of command points. So starting them off straight away pretty well. Then they've also got a 6, does nothing on its own. But they do have a 1 and a 4, so that's a senior leader and a team. And we have the perfect team to bring on, so they will most likely deploy that MMG, I think, somewhere close to their jumping off points, and then spray that British Jeep with fire. So the Germans have used their team to deploy here straight away with the MMG team, with its 5 crew, and they are firing at that Jeep, the lieutenant himself, and they need 5s and 6s to hit because they are firing at elites. However, because they're also firing at a soft skin vehicle, they need 6s as well. They'll be taken into account for the damage on the vehicle. So let's just see what happens. So we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 hits in total, of which 2 of those are 6s. So that's going to be 5 hits on the men themselves. So we've also got 2 6s as well. So that is actually that's 0 net hits on the table 14 of the soft skins. So we basically have to roll a d6, see what happens to them. A 3 is to reverse 2d6 immediately. Any infantry in the way are moved by the controlling player to avoid being run down, so they will fall back. But we've also got those 5 hits on them as well. They are in a light vehicle, so they're in a light cover, but that's reduced by the MMG firing at them. So this is they're actually being hit in the open because there's no cover. This is just scrub, just to it's not causing any cover or anything. So we are killing on 5s and 6s, shocking on 3s and 4s. So this might not be very good. Okay, so that is 2 kills and 1 shock. 2 kill, 1 shock. So let's see if that's on the lieutenant himself, and 1 or 2 it is. 6, no it isn't. So it's 2 of the men have been killed and 1 of them and shock on the vehicle. Plus it's going to reverse 2d6. So let's see how far it reverses. 7 inches. So I'll just get that moved. I'll put the shock on and take off those dead figures. So the Germans didn't use that 4 because that was a senior leader, a bit useless for them to bring that on. But let's have a look at what the British get. So they've got 1, 2 on their chain of command points, so that takes them up to 2. They only have 1 6, however, so that ignores. Then we've got a 4 senior leader, 2 and a 1 as well. So bit of a mix there. We could bring on some more units to try to push them through, or we could move up the second Jeep to lay down fire for the first one that is now kind of panicking a bit and has got 2 men dead in it. So all the paras have done really is they've tried to move the sergeant forward. He only went 4 inches though, so he's obviously seen his lieutenant rearing back towards him, so he's slowed down a little bit to see what the trouble is. I decided not to do anything with the lieutenant because he's currently out of line of sight of that MMG. Obviously not of the German jumping off points, but at least he's a little bit further back. And we've also brought on the senior leader with his Bren team. So this is a sergeant, the platoon sergeant, with his Bren team as well. And what I want to do is try to get these somewhere up into these woods to lay down a base of fire on the Germans and at least keep that MMG occupied at some point while the other ones pass through. So with that in mind, it's back to the Germans. They've got 5 there, so that gives them another chain of command point, taking them up to 3. So we'll just remove that. Then they've got 2 1s and 2 3s, so that's junior leaders and potentially 2 teams, or even a senior leader or a section. And so they could actually bring all their sections on here and bring all their fire to bear on that poor old forward Jeep. Let's see what happens. So the trial's not yet over for the lieutenant in his vehicle up here, because we've got a German section that has just appeared on the edge of the woods. They are firing, hitting on 5s and 6s, firing with everything they've got, and again we're counting the 6s towards hits on that vehicle. So let's just see what we've got. We've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 hits again, surprisingly. No other hits. We're hitting on 5s and 6s because they are those elites. 2 net hits equals, 2 6s equals 0 net hits on the vehicle. So let's just see what happens with that. A 1 is no effect, so they've got away with that at least. But they have got 5 hits that they've got to save against. This time they are in light cover because they are being fired at with just small arms rather than the MMG. But there is only 3 men left in there. 2 were killed last time, and they've still got their lieutenant in there. So let's just see what happens to them. 6 is the kills, 4, 5 is shock. Oh my god, that's not good. That is 3 kills. Okay, so that has killed everybody in that in the vehicle itself. Wiped them out completely. Because there is one excess hit here on the on there, I'm gonna put that onto the lieutenant. So we've got to see what happens to him. Because you know they've had 3 killed. There's only 2 actual men left in there. And that lieutenant himself. So let's just see what happens to him. 1, he's killed outright, otherwise he is injured. 4, he is injured, so that is actually a bad thing's happened. It's also a team as well, so it's a team wiped out and a junior leader wounded as well. So let's have a look. First of all, junior leader wounded. So that's a 1, no effect. And for the team wiped out, a 2 is no effect. So at least their morale has held up, if nothing else. And then using a second junior leader, the Germans just brought on this squad here, and they are going to try to make it towards those woods over there or over there to try and block the access route for the British as well on that side. That was their plan basically. The Germans also had that too, but they're not using it. They're just going to go use what they've already used. So let's just turn over to the British, see what they get. 6 alone is doing nothing. So they've got a 3, 2 1s, 2 4s. So senior leaders, junior leader, and potentially a section as well. So they might actually bring on a couple more vehicles to try and again just to really punch their way through if they can. No firing from the British this turn. I'm trying to get them into a position though to actually combat those German units that are on the table. So we move forward the other half of the lieutenant's section to bring them together. They tried to dismount, but they only got forward 1 inch. But at least they're out of danger and they can fire now at the Germans. Well, they can't this turn because they moved. I've also brought on 2 teams as well from the second section. So these guys have just appeared at the back, so they've only come on 6 inch. And also their senior leader, the sergeant, has brought forward this jeep as well. They have dismounted and they're trying to get into a position with this brain gun to give some covering fire to this flank as well as the Germans are pushing in. So it's a bit bullheaded at the moment. I'm just trying to get as many British onto the table as possible and to smash through those German defences, but I think this is going to be pretty difficult. Speaking of the Germans, back to their turn. So we've got double 6. Okay, they are retaining the phase. That's not great for the British. But we have a 2, a 3 and a 4. So that's section, junior leader and a senior leader. Okay, so using the Germans' junior leader, they've moved these and they did a 3d6 run. So they ran at the double. That would have given them shock, but they used the junior leader to reduce one of the shocks, so they've only got 1 shock. I wanted to get them into cover because they were sitting in the open and there's that brain gun there. They will probably attack those paras next turn or even fire at them, but they're just getting into position now because they know they've got that second phase coming up. Then they're using their 2 with this section to now fire at the British who've just emerged from their vehicle over there. So we're going to try and shoot at them. We're hitting them with 5s and 6s for the range. They're not firing at the vehicle, they're just firing at the men. So we can ignore that 6 as a rule, but let's just have a look at how many hits they've actually dropped on them anyway. 1, 2, 3. This is not really going very well for the British so far. They are taking a pasting, and even more so there. So they've just had 6 hits. These guys are in the open, so they don't get anything for that. So 5s and 6s are kills. Let's see what happens. Actually, that's not too bad. They've got off pretty lightly there. That was a 3, not a 6, and that was a 1. So I'll just knock those over my clumsy fingers. So 4, no effect, and 2 shock on those British. So that actually is probably about the best they could hope for at this point. Well, obviously, no effect would be better, but 2 shock, they can shrug that off in their next turn. But it is the Germans' next phase. And the Germans ignored their 4 for their senior leader. They don't want to bring him on just yet. They've still got 1 section off the table. They might bring that on this turn, but let's see what happens. That's another 6 there. That was just knocked on its side. But there we have 3 6s. So that actually ends the turn. Doesn't do anything else, but it means that the Germans retain the phase again. So this is not going to be great. We've got a 3 and a 4. So that is a junior and a senior leader. So we've got the Germans here firing across at the British. This is using their junior leader there too, so they're just going to use him to fire the entire section. He's also going to reduce that shock as well, so that will take that off completely. And his second activation is just to fire them at those. I'm trying to destroy this section because there's a senior leader in there, and also it's got the Bren gun as well in it, so we just need to get rid of it. Did think about going into close combat, but I think at the moment the paras are just going to be too hardy against them, and they will most likely wipe out most of the German section, so I'm holding back a little bit at this point. So they're going to fire. We'll see what happens this turn, whether they go into close combat or not next turn. They're hitting on 5s and 6s, and they are in light cover. So let's just see, we've got 1, 2, 3. The problem is with these British units is they are very small, so they do absorb the hits quite readily. So that's 5 hits, so that's basically 1 hit on each man. So they're in light cover. 6 are kills, 4, 5 is shock. Let's just see what happens. So actually that's only 1 shock on them. So again, they've got off relatively lightly there. The German firepower is not really doing a great deal. But the Germans retain the phase, so let's see what they do with the next one. Right up. Germans next phase. Okay, 6. It goes back to the British next turn, so that's just on its own. So we've got a 1, a 3, a 4 and a 4, so 2 4s, a 3 and a 1, so quite a mix there. They could bring on that third section and then their senior leader, or they could activate somebody who's already on the board. I'm not sure what they're going to do just yet. Okay, so I'm going to lightly swap targets. I'm going to give the these guys over here, they are going to fire using a junior leader onto the section they already fired at. 5s and 6s are hits. There's more chance of doing more damage to these because these are in the open. So let's just see, it's about reducing force morale as much as anything else. So that is again 5 hits. That's been the average all the way through so far, isn't it? So let's just see what they do. They're in the open, killed on a 5 and a 6. So we've got 1 casualty and 2 shock, so let's quickly put that shock on there whilst I remember. See if the casualty is on that junior leader who's in there. It's only 1 hit. Let's have a look. Roll that in the tray. 4. No, it isn't. So it's just one of the rifle guys. So they've taken 1 down. They are also pinned as well now until the end of the turn. But then to finish off the Germans' turn, they're using their team of their LNG over there. He's just going to fire at the command over here. Let's see, we're hitting on 5s and 6s again. So we've got 1, 2, 3, 4 this time, not 5. I think because I thought it was nearly 5. So that's 4 hits. They are in light cover. Anyway, so 6 is a kill, 4, 5 shock. So that's 1 kill actually, but no shock. Is that kill on their sergeant? No, it's not. It's another one of the rifles. So they are picking away at them. Right, well, we're right in the middle of the attritional part of the battle at this point. And it is the British here. They've got 3 5s, so that gives them 3 chain of command points. That takes them straight up to 5. That's pretty useful. They want to get that chain of command dice in if they can. Then a 6 does nothing on its own, but they've got a 3 and a 1. So that's a junior leader and a team. So that's relatively useful, I think. They can at least start reducing some shock, if nothing else. Actually, the best thing to do, I think, is to combine to the senior leader here. He is going to reduce shock for 1, then get that Bren team to snipe at the LNG team of the Germans. So they're firing all 6 dice just at those 3 men. Let's see what happens. So they're hitting on their close range, they're hitting on against regulars, they're hitting on 4s up, so that's 4 hits. They are still in light cover though, so they're dying on 6s and wounding on 4, 5, shocking on 4 5s. So that's 3 shock just on that LNG team, so that was probably quite worth it, to be honest. But that's about all the British can do this turn. Then it's back to the Germans. 6 on its own, nothing. A 5 is giving them a chain of command point. And then 2 3s, 2 junior leaders and a 2, so that's a section as well. So first things first, they've used their junior leader, one of the 3s, to reduce the shock down to 1 on that LNG that just fired, and then they're using the 2 of their dice to fire as a section at this HQ unit as well again. So again, we're hitting on 5s and 6s, but there's no reduction from shock this time, at least for that. So let's just see what we've got. Ooh, that's only 1 hit in total. So they are in light cover. 6 is a kill, 4, 5 is shock. That is a kill though. Is it on that sergeant? What? Yes, it is. What's happened to him? This is not great luck for the British, is it? Let's have a look. He's killed outright. That's a senior leader killed. So we roll for that on the force morale table. A 3, 2 points straight off the British, drops them down to 7. He is killed. Then for the final junior leader, the Germans are using the guys in the woods over there, and they're just going to fire again at this team here, hitting on 5s and 6s. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 in total. No hits on the vehicle. I did forget actually, if the vehicle's within 4 inches of them, it should take hits as well. So there's no effect on the vehicle itself there. But that is 5 hits on those British. They're in the open. 5, 6 are the kills. And that's 2 kills. 2 kills and 2 shocks. So let's just put the shock on there. So that has actually, yeah, they're definitely pinned. They may well be broken at this point, but let's just have a look. Those 2 kills, are they on their senior leader or junior leader? No, they're not. So it's 2 of the men. However, that has broken them because they are 6 shock against 2 men left. So they will run away 2d6 plus 6 inches. So I'll just work that out in a second. Let's just see how far they go rolling for it. So that's 8 inches. That's the shortest distance they would run. So I'll just put those back there. But that is a team broken, so that's a bad things happen. So let's just see what happens. If their junior leader had routed off table, that would have been pretty terrible as well. So it's team breaks. A 3 is another point off the British morale, so they're now down to 6. Well, we're quite far into the game at this point, and the Germans have yet to take a single casualty. So let's see what the British get up to. 6 does nothing on its own. This is a better spread. So we've got a 4 senior leader. We just had 1 killed. A 3, 2 and 3 2s. So that is quite a good spread actually. That might give them an ability to bring on quite a few jeeps and get some stuff going. Again, all the British have been able to do really is get some men forward. They brought this section forward using one of the 2s and then deployed everybody into the forest here. They managed to keep them together. They've also then brought on another section using the other 2 as well, so there's a bit of flexibility with using these jeeps at least, because they together they're a section. And then they've also brought on their senior leader as well with the mortar, so they want to get that put down so that can start laying some fire down, or at least smoke at least, so they can get past that MMG. Still trying their best. They've got literally everything on the table at this point. Obviously there's still men in jeeps, but they need to get at least one of those jeeps off that table edge on the other side. But this attack has really stalled so far thanks to the German fire. Well, as the Paras struggle to get forward, let's see what the Germans do to them this time. Okay, they've got a 5 there, so that gives them a chain of command point. It takes them up to 5, equal with the Paras. Then they've got a 1, 2, 3 and a 4. So again, pretty good numbers, I guess. So the Germans have used one of their sections to bring on their final section and put them in the woods there. And then their second thing they're doing is they've got their senior leader who has now joined the fight. And he has jumped on the table here with this section. He's going to get them to fire at the British section advancing through the woods. Then we're going to use the final junior leader to charge into battle against close combat against those remaining Bren gun team there. So I think now's the time to do it. So let's do this firing first of all. The senior leader is also getting them to use a machine gewehr, so he's adding 3 extra dice to the firing. They're hitting on 5s and 6s and they are in their cover. So, okay, this is a lot of hits. You can see that straight away, that was a 6 there, which knocks it over. We're looking at 6 so far, 7, 8, 9 hits. So there's actually 2 teams in there, so I'm going to split the fire between the 2 of them. So 4 hits on one, 5 hits on the other. So 4 hits are going to be on the team that is close, the furthest away. So that's these guys here, because it's 2 rifle teams basically. So let's see what happens to them. 6 are kills, 4, 5 shock. So we've got 1 kill and then 2 shock as well on that team. They also have a junior leader in there as well. So I'm going to just roll to see if he is hit as that kill or not. But this again is not looking great, is it really? See if he's hit for that kill. No, he's not. So it's just one of the rifles, so we'll take that off. Then we've got 5 hits on the other team on this side, and oh, would you see, 3 kills and 1 shock this time. So we've got 3 kills on that team this time. Oh god, I don't know if it's worthwhile these charging in against these, to be honest, at this point. Mind you, still got the junior lead, still got those leaders in there. That's the problem, I think. But let's just see. We got those 3 kills, so we are going to hit him on a 1 to a 3. No, he's not hit, so that's 3 of the rifles off. Leave him on because they've got the red hat. So that's actually why it killed 4 of the men out of 10 there, so that's dropped them right down to 6. That's not great, but maybe the close assault might actually be better going against them with a hand grenade attack as well. I'm not sure what to do there. I'm going to stop the camera and just have a little think about it. Okay, I've totted up the numbers, and against these guys here, it's about, the Germans have got about 13 dice against about 20 for the British. However, that's as it stands now. Actually, 19, so it's 13 against 19 dice. So the odds are against the Germans. However, they do have the hand granaten skill, so they could actually potentially kill up to 6 more men, because they might hit with 3 grenade hits, each one having 2 firepower. No guts, no glory. The Germans are going to do it. So we roll for the hand granaten, so it's d6 minus 1. 6 minus 1 is 5. That is 3 hand granaten hits. So that's, first of all, that's the first thing we do, is we've got it's going to be 6 hits, 6 firepower basically. They're in light cover, but that's reduced by 1 because of the grenades. So they are killing, they're basically in the open, so 5s and 6s are kills, spread across the 2 teams. So let's have a look. So yeah, sorry. So that's going to be, well, I'll just add them up as numbers and then just divide it between the 2 teams. So they've taken 3 shock and 3 kills. So let's just put 2 shock on the team there, and then we've got, so it's going to be 2 kills on 1 team. So I'm going to be generous and put it on the heavier one and 1 hit on the other one. So let's just see what happens. 1 or 2, and it's hit their junior leader first of all. Yes, it's hit the junior leader of the 1 and the 2, so let's see what happens to him. A 2, he is wounded, knocks out till the end of the turn, so he's not going to take part in this fight anyway. So that's already reducing the British hits down. So let's just put that to one side. They've actually, that's going to give them a bad things happen anyway, and then they've also lost another guy from there as well. So the second hit, the second kill, was on the other team, so a 1, and that's hit their junior leader. No, he hasn't, so it's the rifle, so he's actually off, but he's the only one left, so that's wiped that out. So that is actually 2 bad things happen rolls. So let's quickly do those. So we got junior leader wounded and a team wiped out. Team wiped out is 4, 1 point off. Junior leader wounded is a 2. That is no effect. So they're down to 5 now on their force morale. Now the Germans are going to run into the attack. So they're going to be using 3d6 minus 1 for the shock. That is 7, becomes 6 inches. I think that's just going to be enough to get them into close combat. They only need to be 4 inches away. So I'm going to shift those up. I'll work out the dice and we'll do the close combat next. Okay, we're back. I've done the sums. The Germans are still on their 13. The British, though, have now dropped down to 12. So it was well worth that hand grenade attack on them. So we're hitting on 5s and 6s, with 6s also causing shock. So the Germans have killed, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4 British, causing 3 shock as well. So I'm going to put that shock on there just in case, mind you. they're wiped out anyway. So we're going to have a hit at least on one of the leaders. Meanwhile, the British have killed one man. One man. No shock. One shock. So let's just put that onto the rifles. They can absorb the shock. Has the German shock kill been on the junior leader? No, it hasn't. So it's 1 to 3 a rifle, 4 to 6 it's off the LMG team. So it's the LMG team. So I'll just take him off there as well. The British have lost 4 men. So that's those 2. So that's another team wiped out, basically. So that's that gone. And there are then 2 kills over that. So both of those kills are going to go as injuries on their leaders. So let's see. The first one was already injured. 2, he is wounded. So that has taken him down to 1 on his, what we call it, his command initiatives. And the other guy, he is wounded as well. So the British have lost. They've lost by 3. Let me just put these markers on here so I remember that these guys are both wounded as well. This game has not gone at all for the British, has it? Really, at all. So they've lost by 3 anyway. So a loss by 3 is they run a well 12 inches facing the enemy and had 2 points of shock on each team. There is no shock, so they just run away 12 inches. Don't think they're 12 inches there off the edge of the board. No, they're not. So they don't rout, but we do have 2 bad things happen, which are 2 junior leaders wounded. So we've got roll for the first one. Let's have a look, just get to this. Let me find this. Junior leader wounded. Right, so first guy, well, I'll just roll them together. It doesn't really matter which is which. Let's have a look. We've got a 1 and a 5. The 1 is nothing. The other one is -1 point. That drops the British down to 4 on their command, on their initiative, their force morale, should I say. And they are almost broken at this point. Okay, I think at this point, to be perfectly honest, I'm going to end the game. Simply because the British only have this section in jeeps and their senior leader here and the remains of a Brengun team, which I'm fairly sure will probably get wiped out by the German, another German attack next turn anyway. The Germans have lost, I think, 1 man in total in the entire ambush. They've got 3 sections on the table, so the British have literally got like about 15 men against approximately 30 Germans with an MMG. Getting them past this point where they'd got before, I think it's just going to be an impossible task, and we'd really be going against the grain to do anything of anything to actually gain any further movement forward. Well, this is how it played out in reality. The British couldn't get forward. They took a hell of a lot of casualties, as these guys have done, and they basically had to fall back and basically withdraw off their area operations and lick their wounds and come back the next day, basically. And we all know how Arnhem turned out. If you've watched the Bridge too far, I'm sure you have. But the highlight of the match, the men of the match, were definitely these guys. The MMG and the other section over there didn't really get into the game, and these fellas just kind of held the British in place over here as well. These paras. It's a very difficult scenario to play out as the British, this one. I don't know whether it's worthwhile maybe trying to get these jeeps down behind the woods here and hit the open areas over here where Tiny is, as you can see. She's demonstrating very well for us. But I don't know if that was the right thing to do, or whether just to try and push through. The problem is they're only in jeeps, so being in jeeps, they are only in light cover, and they take damage very quickly, as you saw early on. They just had, that one just retreated straight away, basically. Tough one, this. It'd be good to play it again to see if there's any lessons learned, and I'm sure I will do at some point. It's a nice and easy table to set up. Just to show you over here the force morale. The British were down onto 4 there, so they're starting to lose dice anyway. And as I say, the Germans are still up on 8. They haven't even lost 1 single force morale at this point. So we're swimming against the tide when it comes to winning that if this was a campaign game, this is where I would have ended it. I'd have pulled back anyway and tried to recoup some of the loss at this point. The Paras just didn't do as well as I thought they would, and they didn't do as well as they should have done, being aggressive elite troops. I suppose it was that opening ambush was the issue, and that was the main thing. Right, well, if you've enjoyed watching this, and if you've enjoyed seeing Tiny on the screen again, please do like and subscribe, drop me a message. Tell me something you would do differently. I'm not entirely sure how to tackle this particular scenario. If you've done it yourself, tell me. Let me know in the comments below what it was that you achieved. How far did the British get? This might be a good little club game, I think, because again, dead easy to set up. It's only a little bit of terrain. I might take this down the club one night and just see if one of the lads down there can do better than I can do as the British. A tough ask. Right, I shall wrap up there. As I say, check out all the socials. They're all the links in the description, and I will see you in the next Chain of Command Storm of Steel battle report.